I started doing a thing where for YouTube members, they can like submit a deck to me and tell me, you know, what environment you're playing in, what you want the deck to do, and I'll try to give some critiques and feedback. I picked an email that I got from one of the folks. He's got this really cool guy by the name of Fumbles. Shout out to Fumbles if you're out there. But the idea is that they send me a deck that looks like the one you see here. I make some adjustments, some critiques, say some things I like about the deck, things I would change about it, and then I kind of build based on what their ideas and wishes are for the deck. So he's like, I basically want to just like play DarkKnightmon in like a more current environment, and this is the deck that he sent to me. He sent to me, technically right now when I'm streaming this, it's currently BT15, but BT16 comes out like the end of this week in the West. And he's like, hey, you know, I just want to play something at locals that I can have fun playing with, and if I win, that's cool. If I don't win, then at least I had fun. Seems like he's a big DarkKnightmon fan, and so I am as well, actually. Before I went to the States last year for the holidays, I actually built some decks that were legal for the West, and I actually played with them in my locals, despite the fact they were just Japanese cards. All the cards themselves were all available in English, but I was just using the Japanese version of them. And I have, one second, one of the decks that I built was DarkKnightmon. And yeah, you can see it there. Kind of small, but yeah, you can see him right there. And I went to New York and also in Charleston, South Carolina. I played with him, and surprisingly well. I was kind of surprised at how well it did, considering it's kind of an old deck at this point. Like DarkKnightmon came out around like what, BT10, BT11? I think it was 10 actually. 10 and like maybe a couple sets before. He's like, here's what I have so far. And so taking a look at the list that he sent me, it looks pretty straightforward. It's like most of the thematically included cards you would imagine. Couple of overview notes. So again, the idea is that we're going to play this in like locals at BT16. Some of the things to think about. First thing is like the new Skaldknightmon, the promo one that came out as a box topper, I think it was. Really, really good. He did a lot of things to the deck that it really needed, in the fact that it can play a Tamer card, it can save itself, and he gives security attack +1 for your level 5s and higher, which really does most of what the deck needed at this point, which is more offense and the ability to get down Tamers so that you can generate more, I guess, more advantage for yourself. The next thing is that the deck has a lot of draw power. When you take, for example, this Monitormon here, the BT10 one, look at top 4 and you can grab 2 cards. That's really good. You've also got cards like, you know, the Skaldknightmon Mighty Axe mode who can search 3. You've also got cards like the Innate Tamer who can search 4. And then grab, you know, a Twilight card. So the deck can really like draw pretty quickly, with the small caveat that because it's a Digicross focused deck, you're not going to be drawing off of evolutions very much. And because of that, you're not technically drawing cards, you're searching cards. And so this is kind of one of the ways that the deck kind of like locks itself, in that you can only search for cards that are within its archetype, and cards outside of that are harder to pick up because you're usually going to bottom deck them off of a search. So you kind of have to play around the fact that because the deck is so archetypically locked. Is that a word? I just made it up. It is now, yeah. Because the deck is so archetypally locked, like you have this situation where you can't really include other kinds of cards. So that's one of the problems I'd like to solve. I will say the Russian doll defense is really good because DP minus is so prominent right now, where you would just DP minus a problem away and then normally it's gone forever. But the fact that DarkKnightmon dies and then spawns another little homie, yeah, it kind of gets around DP minus, with the exception of things like blanket DP minus. And those are definitely things to think about, especially in BT16, because they do have the Valkyrie Ace, right? Alongside cards, old staples like Shangri Mount Ruin mode. Also, the deck operates at the level 4s and level 5s, and because of this, and the fact that it's a black deck, means that you are able to take advantage of some really, really good ace cards. There are some fantastic choices for black aces in things like Mega Gargomon Ace, as well as the Vikemon Ace released in BT16, and I want to take a look at those as we look at this deck as well. So I'm going to go about this by looking at each of the levels, and so I'll kind of go over a level in itself. For this deck, starting at level 3s, most of it is basically meant for, like, searching. So you've got the BT5 Monitormon, who just looks at cards, and then, you know, you reveal cards and grab them, add them to your hand. You've also got the BT7 one, who looks at top 3 and then grabs a card, adds to hand. And the one I mentioned before, the BT10 Monitormon. And so this is where I want to kind of change one of the issues that I see with the deck, in that it's archetypically, trademark, locked, in that because of the way these cards are worded, you can't really search outside of them. So I'm thinking something like this. You can, if you want to go the money route, I would recommend replacing some of these guys with Ukomon. Maybe keep the BT10, but then maybe splash in 3 of the BT16 Ukomon, and then maybe 3 of the promo Ukomon if you can get your hands on them. Just because another issue this deck tends to have is that it plays with a very specific number, and that is 4. Like pretty much most of the cards are going to cost 4 to play. You see basically all of the Skull-Knightmons are 4, as well as the Deadly Axe-mons. You've also got the DarkKnightmon who can Digicross himself down to 4. And because there's no memory setting tamer for this deck, it's really typical, or it's really hard to keep your turn typically whenever you play a card down, because you typically don't have more than 3 memory at any given time. Even with the Tamers, Kitty Hut and Nene Tamer here, they only give you +1 if 2 or more Digimon are on board. There's no way to get like 3 set and then to gain +1 memory after that. It's really difficult. So typically when you play something, your turn ends, and so the idea is to use Ukomon as a way to get that plus memory to maybe keep your turn if possible. So that's one option. If you don't want to go, or if you want to go a cheaper route with some of the option cards, or excuse me, with the level 3s, then maybe opt for the level 3 Gotsumon. You can safely evolve him in Raising to get a card draw, promote him, he becomes a blocker, and then whenever he's deleted, so if you just block something on your opponent's turn, he's very weak blocker, so he just meant to like stop an attack. You can look at top 3 cards of your deck and then add 1 black card. Doesn't have to be a Digimon, just 1 black card. It could be an option, it could be a Tamer, which means you open up your search options to not just Twilight cards, or Dark Knight, or Skull Knight, or Deadly Axemon cards. Which helps to alleviate that problem a little bit. This Gotsumon alongside the promo Ukomon could be an option if you can't run the BT16 Ukomon, so there's a cheaper option if you need it. The other option, there's another route here, and you can go the route of Disruption, and that is using things like Chikurimon. So you remember this old BT6 Chikurimon? If he's checked in security, you De-Digivolve something, which is really, really annoying. The other option is the Dorumon. So this I think is a promo Dorumon who has a pretty useful effect for this deck, in that security, whenever he's checked, at the end of the battle, you can look at the top card of your deck. If it's a black Digimon with a play cost of 4 or less, then you can just play it on the board. And because so many of your level 4s, this deck operates at level 4 range so heavily, you have a lot of options here. So Skull-Knightmons, Deadly Axemons, or if you hit a level 3, you can play them as well. I really like the idea of really disrupting your opponent and also getting something down on the board. And this like if you go this route, instead of using the Ukomon, you go this route with like the Chikurimon and Dorumon, games are definitely going to get a lot more wilder. So if you're trying to maximize like craziness, this is one good way to do it. If you want to go something a bit more resource oriented, then the Ukomon, double Ukomon is a great choice, or the Ukomon Gotsumon. So yeah, that's I think some pretty good options for you at the level 3s. That way you can kind of get away from just like the focus on only Twilight cards, and maybe be able to pull out some of the other things. Like maybe if we want to add an Ace in here, the Gotsumon lets you grab it if it's black. Taking a look at the level 4s, I guess moving on. You need a really good split of Deadly Axemons and Skull-Knightmons for this deck. And that's because you need the Digicross materials, and pretty much all the Digicross are going to use him. You've got things like the Big Axe mode, who's nice because he can technically be counted as both, which is really, really useful. He's kind of like a wild card, essentially. And you can just play him down as well for his own effect. But your Skull-Knightmons kind of take up most of the... If you want to go like the super aggressive route, which I think is probably a good way to do it, the Skull-Knightmons take up most of the space from the security attack +1 ones. So the BT7 one is good, and then the promo one is good as well. I might increase this one to 4. I kind of like him at 4. That way you have like a full 8 split here, and then you can just fill in the rest with either wild cards or some Deadly Axemons. I like the idea of maybe like 4 Skull Knights, 4 Skull Knights here, 4 copies of the Mighty Axe mode as well. He would be considered like our either wild card or like a Deadly Axe. And then maybe like 3 copies of Cavalier mode. Cavalier mode is actually really good. Because he can evolve off a level 4 for 1, he's a source of card draw for 1 memory, and you get jamming plus blocker. So if you get this guy up, the Cavalier mode, on top of the BT7 Skull-Knightmon, because it has Knightmon in the name, like you get security attack +1, and you get jamming off of the Cavalier mode, so you can swing for 2 with jamming, which is pretty good. Nice little combo pieces there. And honestly, I like the idea of getting Reboot off of the DarkKnightmon here, but I don't know. I feel like the EX4 stuff is leaves a little bit something to be desired. Because you're already running so many DarkKnightmons already, the Reboot seems a little, I don't know, second rate compared to Sec Plus 1. And then the Deadly Axemon is not bad. On play, you trash a card, and then you can draw 2. The fact that you have to trash a Twilight card, though, I feel like can sometimes be problematic. Maybe you want to keep that card in hand for Digicross if you don't have these 2 Tamers down. And the plus 1000 I think is kind of unnecessary. Sure, it'd be nice to like have to be at 13,000, but I feel like this is the kind of deck where you don't mind dying. So to lose that 1000 so quickly would not really be a problem. I don't know. That's just my opinion. So I was thinking maybe, again, you max out the Skull Knights here for the security attack pluses, and then go for some wild cards in the Mighty Axe mode, 4 copies of this guy, and then 3 copies of the Cavalier mode. And I do really like the inclusion of the Mercurymon. This is really nice tech, where you can kind of like use 2 memory to just like finish game with this guy, or to get a block up really quickly. That's also not a bad idea off of one of your Tamers, because the Tamers don't typically, I guess you can use the Tamers. This Tamer typically doesn't do much within the realm of resting, so you can just kind of go off of her. And whereas this guy's, you can actually do rest sometimes, so maybe not on them. Level 5s are, I don't know, pretty straightforward. The DarkKnightmon really is the start of this deck, and you're not really going to be messing with him as far as ratios are concerned. You basically just max for him and then just, be done with it. De-Digivolve plus Destruction is so nice, and because you're basically playing a level 5 for 4 cost, is so good. And he, if you put him on top of one of the Skull Knights to have Sec plus 1, that's so much value on a single card. With the threat of an ace is even scarier. This Skull Knightmon, the one from EX4, I'm not a big fan of. I think I kind of see what Fumbles was going for in that he wanted the De-Digivolve. I don't know, I feel like whenever he's deleted, like, he doesn't really get to play anything, and that's kind of problematic to me. He only like looks at top 2 and then adds a card to hand. That's kind of lackluster in my opinion. Honestly, I would probably go with the other, like the older DarkKnightmon. You guys know what I'm talking about? This one here, like maybe 1 copy of this guy, because at least he can play the 2 pieces underneath him whenever he's destroyed, albeit rested. That's fine. But still, like, I feel like you want to be able to just keep dropping stuff on board whenever one Digimon is destroyed. So yeah, maybe swap out the EX DarkKnightmon for this guy right here at BT7. And then once he also includes the 1 copy of the Muso Knightmon here. I'm not really sure why. Muso Knightmon I feel like is more useful in like the Bagara army decks. The De-Digivolve is cool, but you have to have 2 Armon in your sources. So yeah, because this deck doesn't run 2 Armon, that's not really an option. The on deletion is okay, but again, from level 5, you have to go from a level 5 on this guy. Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it feels a little clunky in my opinion. So the level 6s, I think DarkKnightmon X-Antibody has always been a staple for this deck. Tamer deletion is such a coveted effect in this game, and the fact that he has that, whether it's your opponent's Tamers or your own Tamer, where you delete like the Nene Tamer and gain 2 and make him a 2-cost Digivolve, because he's 4 from a DarkKnightmon, is really good. He also, I believe, unsuspends, so you can get another set of attacks off, and if you have like Security Attack Plus, you can just go in for 2 more security, and that's like 4 hits in a single turn, which is terrifying. And then, if not, you have a big blocker on the board who can die and then drop a Knightmon himself. I like the copies of him here. He also runs a couple copies of Death Exmon. In BT16 specifically, because Numamon is so scary, Death Exmon is a great choice. Might be worth it, like swapping out maybe 1 copy of the Death Exmons. If you're really trying to sweat. If you're really trying to sweat, maybe go into 1 copy of Shine Greymon Ruin Mode and then 1 copy of Death X. That might be a way to go. But I don't imagine you want to sweat this. I don't imagine Fumbles wants to sweat that hard. Seems like he's going something for a bit on the lighter side. Tamer-wise, I think these Tamer splits are pretty good. Nene, she's a searcher, and she basically gives all your Digimon blocker, which is really annoying. And then the Nene and Kitty Hot Tamer give you +1 memory, and you can Digicross from trash, which is an amazing effect, especially for this deck. You have cards like option cards like Immortal Ruler, who can trash cards off your deck, and then you can Digicross from a DarkKnightmon into the trash. Is so good. And then he runs 1 copy of Trident Arm, and I think, yeah, Trident Arm. I'm conflicted. I understand that Trident Arm is a good card. I recognize it's good, but it's 6 cost. Like if it's not checked in security, to play a 6 cost in this deck, you basically don't get to play anything on board, and like you already have to have something up on the board, so you can't like drop a DarkKnightmon and then play Trident Arm. So I guess you're hoping for it to be in security, but if you're only running 1 copy, man, that's like you're really gambling here. Maybe what's the other one called? Laplace Demon, I think it is. Yeah. He's only 1 copies or 1 cost. Come on, load up, buddy. There you go. Maybe this might be better. Although I will say for BT16, when you're fighting against something like Rapidmon X, Laplace Demon's not going to cut it. Yeah, this is why I'm conflicted, right? Because Trident Arm is definitely great. So if you have something on board already, and then you play Trident Arm, you're like Gucci. But you have to make sure you've set yourself up well for this. Otherwise, I don't know, maybe like DG Dimension or Laplace Demon, depending on the route you want to go. At least DG Dimension destroys something, so you can De-Digivolve and then like pop stuff. And Laplace Demon is very cheap, so you can just play it out and then also have something on board at the same time, potentially. It's a tough. Yeah, it's tough. I wouldn't be remiss if he like, yeah, I want to run this card, because I understand some of the reasoning behind it. Pedro, I kind of feel the same way. Like, I feel like, yeah, you only really get 1 action a turn, and so because memory is already so tight, you only really get 1 action a turn, and so trying to play down Trident Arm and the Digimon is kind of tough. So that's kind of where I landed on his build. I did a little bit of retooling, and this is something that I came up with, and this is kind of like the, I guess, like a little bit sweatier side of the deck. So a couple of changes I've made here. I talked about the Ukomons before. I kept the Monitormon. You can keep the Pagumon? That's his name. That's what I'm thinking of. Oh, thank God I remembered it. Yeah, you can probably hold on to this Pagumon here. Whenever he's deleted, you reveal top card or deck if it's and if it's black card, you add it to hand. Or black Digimon card, you add it to hand. I think that's like the more common one. Another one is oh god, the Tokomon. Tokomon is also a good choice. Where if it's your opponent's turn, you just draw a card, I think it is. Yeah, if your opponent's turn, just draw 1. This goes really well with the Gotsumon I mentioned before, so there's that option. So level 3s here, again, I go the Ukomon route. So Ukomon from BT16 can search anything in the deck essentially, except the options. So you can grab things like the Ace cards, you can grab things like Tamers. They don't have to be Twilight themed, because you notice we run a couple copies of tie in here. And the Ukomon here is just for maybe a little bit more memory. You can see that I'm trying to skirt my memory restrictions that the deck normally has by including a couple of different ways to grab something. Ukomon is one, the Kitty Hot Nene Tamer is another one as well, and then if you play like a DarkKnightmon, you can potentially keep your turn by destroying the Nene, so there's like those 3 things to kind of help out. Additionally, most of level 4s I think are what I mentioned before, so you see that I go double Skull Knight at full 4 copies for maximum offense, and then 3 of the Cavalier mode for some cheap evolutions, plus the Sec +1 combo off of the old Skull Knightmon here, and all that with jamming. And then on top of that, I've got the 1 copy of the Mercurymon, because I think this is a cute little tech, and yeah. You need a way to close out game sometime. If you only have 2 memory, then this is the way to do it. The DarkKnightmon's the same I mentioned before, so BT10 one is the start of the show, just max him out, and then the 1 copy of the BT7 one, because he lets us play 2 Digimon rested, where he doesn't have like the De-Digivolve effect, that's fine. Instead, you can just like swarm the board and hope for the best. And then I've got the DarkKnightmons here at 3 copies. Maybe you could maybe drop this to 2, although I like the idea of having the thematic like boss in the deck at 3, and then 2 copies of the Vicomon Ace. Vicomon Ace is real nasty because if you catch a Magnamon out of position, they lose not only the Magnamon but also the Digimon underneath it. And for Vaccine Yellow, that sometimes is an Ace card, and you can essentially steal their turn. If they attack your you go into Vike Ace, you pop them, and then you steal their turn. De-Digivolve 2, and then if they have 1 or fewer source cards, they can't suspend. Very, very nasty card. Additionally, 1 copy of the Mecha Gargomon Ace. There are just some cases where you don't mind like not De-Digivolving, but in other cases you want to just like freeze their board, and his ability to stop Digimon from Digivolving is terrifying. It's sometimes like a knife to the heart in some cases, where they just like can't do anything on board, and they either have to pass, or they have to like make some like really inefficient memory play. So for all my grumbling about having to use Trident Arm, because I'm trying to skirt the memory restrictions of this deck, I include 2 copies here. Like I said before, you can swap these out for Laplace Demons if you don't mind not having the De-Digivolve, or if you want to go for something like a Dimension for something with a bit more bite to it, and that you can destroy Digimon. That's also an option, but I'm hoping that I can have enough memory to like play Digimon and then make a play, even though it's kind of expensive, especially if it means getting rid of something really problematic, like I mentioned before, like a Magnamon out of position. And then, yeah, Mortal Ruler here is the same as the previous, but I've cut the Tamers down a little bit to 3 Nenes and then 3 Kiriha Nenes, and just 2 copies of Tai. I'm a little conflicted here. I know he's not searchable by the Twilight stuff, but he is searchable by the Ukomon, which I am hoping will help, or some of the card draw for things like the Cavalier mode. And if you get him down, if you do manage to find him, you're basically like turbocharging the deck. Like you get 3 memory every single turn, and then on top of that, whenever you would block, you can rest this guy, get another card draw, and get 2000 DP on your Digimon if you want. So I think it's well worth like trying to get him if you see him, or like playing if you see him during the game. But if you don't see him, that's fine. You can try to play with like the Ukomon and the Kiriha Nenes. But yeah, that's where I landed on the deck. Fubbles, if you're watching this, big donk, I hope this is useful for you. I hope you give it a shot. Again, if you don't want to go for the double Ukomon play here, you can opt to go into the Gotsumon. That's an option. And if you want to have your games be a bit more chaotic, definitely try out the Dorumon and Chikurimon, because nothing spells chaos like security options or security Digimon de-digivolving stuff on attack. Terrifying. So yeah, I hope this is useful for you, and I hope that you can use this in BT16. Again, because this deck is a bit old at this point, like BT10 was a long time ago, I think you're going to struggle in some games, but this should make games, I guess, a little bit easier and a little bit more manageable than the base DarkKnightmon package. Yeah, all right, nice. All right, and I guess this is my promo plug. If you'd like to have this done for something or a deck that you've built, let me know by becoming a YouTube member, and then whenever I put out a blast each month for folks wishing to have their decks critiqued, you can do me a favor and just reply to that, and then yeah, I can do one of these for you.